the questions that we can ask ourselves to understand, okay, what am I really keen on keeping right now? What can I maybe toss or donate or whatever? And let's just have an honest conversation about that. But I really want you to be able to walk away with some very, actionable tools and things to keep in mind, as always, as much as I can. I love to give that to you guys, that you can apply to whatever your situation might look like right now. Welcome to the Life with Grief podcast. I'm your host, grief and soul purpose coach, and fellow griever, Tara Accardo. Welcome back to another episode of Mourning Sips and Soul Shifts on the Life with Grief podcast. I am, dare I say, excited to dig into today's particular topic with you guys. For me personally, it has been a very kind of prevalent thing in my life lately. I will get into what I mean by that in just a moment. But by and large, anytime I post about this on social media or whatever, I feel like I get a lot of feedback on this. I get people that are like, oh my God, I can so relate to this. I need help with this too. This is a really difficult process for me, et cetera, et cetera. And so I was going back through like the episodes I've done and I was like, how have I not talked about this yet? I was kind of like shocked with myself, to be honest. And also because I have also written about this particular topic we're getting into today. I actually have a blog post on this as well. So if you're more in the mood to read about this, or you just want to revisit that in a blog form later, you're welcome to. I will link that in the show notes. But today, I basically just want to talk about ways that we can wrap our head around going through and sort of processing the belongings of our loved ones who have died. And how do we lovingly let go of the things that we just cannot or don't want to keep? And how do we prioritize what to keep amongst all of this? And the reason I say this is kind of relevant for me currently, mind you, my parents died five and a half-ish years ago now. So one would think like, Tara, you've probably like gone through this process before, haven't you? Haven't you kind of like been there, done that? Yes, I have. And I'm actually a little bit glad that I waited sort of this long into the podcast to talk about this, because it's something it's not like we want to revisit it, but like realistically, where you are in your grief when a loss first happens is very different, I'll just say, years down the line. When I first had to go through a lot of my parents' belongings and things closer to when they died, quite frankly, I was in a much different headspace. I was like a whole different version of myself back then than what I am now and where I'm at now, and my comfortability of donating or getting rid of or throwing out certain things, right? That just don't make sense to keep, or I felt was like time to part with, or like, okay, I can kind of let this go. And so I just say all of that to just kind of set the stage here a little bit, and that this, again, it's a process you might have to continue coming back to over and over again as you get accustomed to your life after loss and just frankly get used to them not being here. And you might find that with some time, there are some things that you are more comfortable with letting go of, or you just don't have the space to hold on to something, or whatever the circumstances are. And I have been in all of those places. There are definitely things that my parents had that I frankly don't have the space for, or I wasn't emotionally ready to let go of at one point. But with time, I've kind of come to understand what I really want to keep and what I really need of theirs, and what I can like lovingly release into the world or donate to a good cause or whatever it is. For me, more recently, this has shown up in the fact that we had like a 10 by 10 storage unit. And I was like looking at this storage unit and I was like, we have got to get rid of some things. Long story short, it took me like a month of going to the storage unit. I could only manage to go once a week with everything I have going on. So I would go on Saturdays, with my 18-month-old daughter in tow because I didn't have a babysitter for her. My husband works on Saturdays. And so I would literally have her in the stroller, and I'm like going through things in the storage unit, bringing home things to throw out, whether that or not that was my parents' stuff, just in general. Maybe it was like some old winter clothes of ours or whatever, not even like touching my parents' stuff yet, right? I've shared a lot of this on social media, so maybe you have or haven't seen some of my stories about this, but I was sharing some of this process. And again, I got a lot of feedback of people saying, like, I get this. Oh my gosh, it's so difficult going through these things. How do you decide? What do you do? And so, really, that's what I want to talk about in this episode today, because regardless of whether or not you have a storage unit or anything that you need to clear out, whatever the circumstances are, it's a tough process, you guys. And there's a lot of emotion with it, and it can be just very emotionally charged. And you might just feel a little bit lost in all of this. So I want to acknowledge that, but not only acknowledge it, I want to talk about things that have helped me, that have helped people that I coach, just work through some of this and the questions that we can ask ourselves to understand, okay, what am I really keen on keeping right now? What can I maybe toss or donate or whatever? And let's just have an honest conversation about that. But I really want you to be able to walk away with some very, actionable tools and things to keep in mind, as always, as much as I can. I love to give that to you guys, that you can apply to whatever your situation might look like right now. So, that all being said, I wanted to actually kind of officially kick this off with something funny that my mom used to say, albeit this is a little bit, for me, this is like a little bit dark now, given the fact that she is in fact dead. But she would say, Tara, you can't take it with you when you go. You can't take that with you when you die. And the thing is, she's right. She's right. Both of my parents died. Guess who got all of their belongings? This girl. So let's just acknowledge that and get that straight, and let's let that sink in. Now, sure, little caveat here, we might bury our loved ones in a special outfit, or we might have some of their things included, perhaps in their burial, if that applies to you. Both of my parents were cremated, so just is what it is. But maybe they had a favorite piece of jewelry on them, or if it is a burial, there's a photo or a particular possession they enjoyed or something like that. That is an absolutely beautiful gesture. And that is not what this conversation so much is about. If that feels right to you or aligns with any of your beliefs, I encourage you to do that, right? Here's the thing. Unless your loved one was an Egyptian pharaoh or someone that could afford a massive tomb, for example, where all of their belongings from the physical life can accompany them in the afterlife, chances are you just lost someone and now have a whole lot of stuff to sort through, whether this is falling on you or multiple people around you or whatever. That's the reality that so many of us face. And that is not easy. It's a burden that we take on as those left here in the physical world. I hate to say it's a burden, but let's be real, it can sometimes feel more like a burden than anything sometimes. Sometimes there are these items or these things or these situations where it does become heavy on our heart and on our mind, and we're stuck in this place where it's like, oh, we don't want to get rid of it, but the belongings are kind of giving us a headache. And material possessions are tricky when a loved one dies because there can be so much sentiment attached to them, which I love because that shows so much love and care that went into that person's life or that item that they or you really love. But the difficult thing that we have to remember is that possessions are exactly that. They are things. They are material things. And I want to throw this out there really quick. There is a movie that I really love. It's called Leap Year. This is several years old now. I actually can't remember when this came out, but it has Amy Adams and Matthew Good. This movie is was a favorite of my parents and I, and it takes place in Ireland. It's beautiful. And there is this scene where they are walking up this hill, this beautiful hill. Maybe you've seen this movie and you know what I'm talking about, but there is this stunning old castle on the top of this hill in Ireland. Declan, Matthew Good's character, asks Anna, Amy Adams' character, if her house was on fire and she only had 60 seconds to grab one thing, what she would take with her. She couldn't give much of a response there, honestly, but he answered his own question by saying that all he would take was his mother's clado ring, the little ring with the crown and the heart and the two hands, if you're familiar with that. That was so poignant to me. It struck me then, before my parents even died. We attach meaning and substance to belongings and things around us and whatever. But like at the end of the day, this is very like woo woo of me, but like, what does it all mean? What does it all really? And does it still mean something when we die? Right. And so that just spoke to me a lot. And so that's just an example of something that I encourage you to kind of come back to. I know that's kind of a silly example from a movie, but I think that's really poignant because let's say you did have to, choose something in a panic and you couldn't save everything. What does really resonate with you? What is really important to you? And so all of these times over the years where I've had to go through my parents' things, frankly, in phases almost, I always keep that in mind. And okay, what has consistently meant the most to me to continue keeping, and what things slowly but surely have I felt comfortable releasing? That being said, before we really dig into the process of moving through their belongings and how we can do that and feel good about it, I want to acknowledge the fact that it is not an easy process. Any of the multitude of times that I've had to do this over the years, every time looks and feels a little bit different. And I just want to reassure you that don't for a second feel like your inability to get rid of something, even the most mundane thing, is problematic or silly. A therapist might disagree with me on that. I don't know. I am not a mental health professional. I am not a therapist. And yes, maybe down the line, if we're clinging too hard to certain things, right? We don't want to be hoarders, right? Like we have to realistically move through some of these things and again, it's a process. It's difficult to do, but it's also really healthy to do. And I think and in doing that, we're so appreciative of what we do have left of them, and it makes us appreciate the things that we keep that much more. So again, I encourage you, like, know that this can and will happen in phases, and that's okay. I personally encourage that. It makes things feel less overwhelming. That said, if you are under the gun to move things out or you need to purge, because I know there are situations like that, you might have to have an estate sale, you might be forced to move out of a home. Like, I know there are so many nuances and situations here. What I'm about to share will hopefully not only apply to that process if you are on a bit of a time constraint, but for those of us in general who just know that we have to go through these things. We have to make some decisions, but we're feeling really torn about how we're supposed to be able to do that. I really hope what I'm about to say helps you feel good about that process and also feel some peace in the interim, but feel relieved when we can let go of certain things, feel good about what we're keeping, and feel as good about the process as we possibly can. Yes, it might sting a little bit to get rid of something, but ultimately you're like, okay, my loved one wasn't even that attached to this. I have no real attachment to it. I can donate this or I can throw it out and I can feel okay about that. Phase two are items that you aren't ready to part with yet, but might be okay with releasing later on. More on that to come. And phase three are items that you can simply never part with. You know that now, never happening. No one can force you, right? So I guess maybe these aren't phases per se. They're maybe just ways to kind of categorize things, I guess is probably the better way to put this. But allow yourself to move through that process as naturally as much as you can. Again, I know there might be outside forces here. Maybe you need to sell a house and can't move everything into storage, or other family members are involved. Maybe they're making the situation difficult for you. Whatever it is, I encourage you to speak up as much as you can about how you're feeling and your grieving process. the best you can. If you need more time, make it known. Maybe try and negotiate with people. And if you need more time, making it known one way or another. So let's talk about some of my high level tips for going through and getting rid of belongings of a loved one. Number one, take inventory. This might feel a bit overwhelming depending on the estate you're working with, but it's important. Even if it's not an official inventory of sorts, at least get a gauge on how much is in front of you, right? If it's a lot, don't immediately go to a place of stress or anxiety. It will all get worked through with time. It just will. One way or another, things are going to get cleared out, things are going to be moved through. You're going to be able to chip away at it. Don't overwhelm yourself, right? Take it literally one item at a time. And that is what ultimately leads me to tip number two, breaking things out into manageable rooms, sections, whatever. It will be a game changer for you. So do yourself that favor and break it up a little bit, or spend a day or two just tackling clothes and other wardrobe items or household items, right? Like I'm thinking of the things that I also had to go through with my parents, and being able to just like, okay, let me just like tackle this one closet today and see what dent I can make in that. And maybe it's just a few hours here and there, whatever it is. Separate these into categories or sections that are easier to digest emotionally. Tip number three, kind of in line with what I was just talking about, take it one item at a time as much as you can. Yes, this might be overwhelming. And yes, this could take a while depending on how much you have to go through. But there is also something to be said, and this can be such a sacred process, about really being able to sit with that item for a moment. Again, I'm going to get a little woohoo here, like feel the energy of the item, think about how you really feel about it and how you feel in your gut. It's such a beautiful way to get in touch with our intuition. And again, just like, yes, this feels good to me, or no, this doesn't feel good to me. And that can bleed into so many other aspects of your life too. So, to take this a step further, some questions that you can ask yourself as you're going through this process is, and these are literally questions I would ask myself, you guys. So, this is effective, can confirm. Number one, does it spark joy? Is it something that lights you up when you hold it in your hand? How does it feel? Again, energetically, your connection to it, all the things. Number two, is it something that might be tough to part with, but you could ultimately live without and not lose a lot of sleep over it? Number three, and this one's pretty important. I don't think people like automatically think of this. Do you have a safe space to store it or room for whatever it is in your current living situation? Number four, if your loved one were here, would they be okay parting with it? And really think about this too. Don't just assume it's a no because you're feeling your attachment to it. Like, really, really ponder that. I had to do that, I think, a lot with my mom's stuff, things that I was having a hard time kind of parting with. But then I was really thinking about it, and I was like, let's say a shirt, for example. I was like, was she really head over heels with this shirt? Or is this just, it smells like her, so it reminds me of her, and that's why I don't want to let it go. I was like, who's missing this? Really? Is it me, or would I know that she has some connection to it if she were here? Sometimes it's a yes, sometimes it's a no. Number five, if this item was no longer with you, would it bring you pain to be without? So this is where we could do a little future thinking, in a week or two, a month, a year, whatever. If you no longer had this item, I'll just put this bluntly, would you notice? There are some things, I'll tell you guys right now, that I've gotten rid of my parents that I've probably forgotten about. There was a point in my grief where I was like, I will never forget anything that they ever wore. I will never get rid of anything, right? Like anything that I could cling to. I was like, absolutely not. This is not being taken from me. And 5 years out, I'm like, okay, yeah, I know the things that would mean a lot to them if they were still here. I know that they were not horribly attached to that pair of shoes that I donated 2.5 years ago that I can't even remember what they look like now. So again, just thinking ahead a little bit too. So in the present moment, how would you feel without it? And then thinking a little bit ahead, how you would feel if it was no longer in your life. Number 6, how often would you look at or use or enjoy this item if you kept it? Honor where you are. There will come a time, I promise you this is going to come. There's going to come a time where it might be an aha moment or it might be a little more subtle, but you're like, okay, I can lovingly release this and my life will be just fine. And I will sleep well tonight and it's all going to be okay. And then there are some items where you will almost feel panicked if you don't have them in your possession. And that I think is how we can start differentiating what's good to keep, what's good to release. So that leads me to number 7. Does it bring you comfort? Is there anything about that item that just makes you feel safe and comfortable and at peace? And if it does for right now, great. Honor that, put it in the keep pile. And if there's ever a day where you're like, you know what, it still brings me comfort, but I'm good to let it go, that's beautiful too. And allow that to happen because I think that's also a beautiful indication that you're growing and you're evolving as a person too. And so that actually brings me to my next tip here is you've heard me say probably multiple times now, lovingly release these things. I can't remember if I've ever talked about Marie Kondo on this podcast yet, but I love her. I truly admire her organization and everything so much. And she has this beautiful method, and you can literally look this up on YouTube as well, that she goes through when getting rid of things, whether it's throwing it out, whether it's donating, whatever. And even if it's a little painful, but you know that you have to, or you know is best, or you know that it's time, showing that item gratitude. So this happened to me many times going through, especially my parents' clothes. I feel like I would take it one by one, see how I felt about it. If it was something I was ready to let go of, begrudgingly, but it was time, thanking that item for the joy that it brings you. Thank it for the joy or comfort or warmth that it brought your loved one. Have that moment with it, that moment of closure, if you will, and let it go. And I swear, after a while, it really does make you feel better about moving through those belongings, allowing it to go to a different place out of your possession. And just a quick note here on donation. I've talked to some other grievers, and I know some people find it kind of weird or uncomfortable to donate clothes of their deceased loved ones. I totally get it. This might be situational or whatever. I always say, don't do anything you're not comfortable with. Of course, it's only going to make it harder. For me, I personally felt that donating was a better fate I keep bringing up clothes and shoes today, you guys. There was a lot of household items and things too, but let's just stick with clothes and shoes because I think that's one of the harder things for a lot of us to get rid of. Personally, unless the shirt had a hole in it or the shoes weren't in great condition and enough for donating felt good if I could make that work. To each their own though. Wherever they go, the point is we want you to feel comfortable with it. So again, whatever the outcome is, just do what feels aligned for you. All right, so as we start to wrap up here, I just want to reiterate one more time. Be so patient with yourself and give this whole process time. I've mentioned this a few times now, but here I am 5 years later, and I am still going through this process because I've allowed myself time and I've had the luxury to allow myself that time to do this on my own timeline, on my own terms. And I've felt good about that. And I have felt peace in that because in allowing myself to have that time. And so if that's possible for you, I empower you to do that too. Worst case scenario, if it's in your budget, rent a storage unit for a little while. If you are feeling under the gun, but simply not ready to let go of things yet. Again, like I was saying in the beginning, we've had storage units on and off for a few years, but I'll be very honest with you guys. I got tired of paying for it. I got tired of paying for that 10 by 10 unit. I wanted a 5 by 10 and I was super determined to get all of our stuff in there. And I'll be so honest too, I'm proud of myself because it was a lot of hard work. I actually don't know how I got it all done, but I did. And you do feel good about yourself. You do feel accomplished. You do have more appreciation for the things you have kept. And you're also kind of giving back to the world in a way, especially if you do donate things that, maybe someone else can wear or enjoy now. Maybe it's like a lamp or a table or something that you would normally just have in storage or sitting somewhere random, not really getting use out of it. But what if there's someone out there that would love it and cherish it and use it? And there you are, kind of giving back to the community and to the planet a little bit, right? So, as we start to wrap this up, again, I just want to call attention to the fact that this process, it is arduous, it's emotional, it's stressful, it's time consuming, especially if others are involved. What I've also realized is it does a lot of the times require very frank conversations about it and what should or shouldn't go. And sometimes as a griever, that's hard to hear. I think a big part of that is just being realistic and being very honest with ourselves, like I said, with those around us. What makes sense to keep? What can you actually keep while maintaining the integrity of that item? Is there anything that would break your heart even more to lose? And depending on where you are in your grieving experience right now, I want to acknowledge that. If you were earlier on, you might be like, Tara, I ain't getting rid of anything at this point. I'm kind of just here for the vibes and I'm here to like kind of hear what you had to say about it, but I'm not there. That's okay. But maybe you're like me and you're a few years out and you're like, I've tried getting rid of things. I'm still struggling with it. I just need a different perspective. I need a little mindset shift on it. And I really hope that helped give you that today. My closing word here, and if you take away nothing else from this episode, please let it be this. And this might be hard to hear, but stay with me. There is more to life than items, than things, than these physical reminders of our loved ones. One really beautiful thing that I have had people tell me over and over again is that I am such a product of my parents, that I am them. I'm their DNA. I'm the thing that they were the most proud of. And I always get choked up when when I think about that. And what I'm about to say might sound a little funny. It might come off as a little self-important, but I know it to be true after a lot of self-reflection and a lot of other people nailing it into my psyche. And I hope that you know this for yourself too, because now I can say this with confidence. I am what my parents cared about most. If the house were ablaze, belongings would be left behind and we would have each other. That is it. Moments, experiences, memories, the relationships with our fellow humans trump it all, you guys. It trumps any item that we are struggling with deciding whether to keep or to get rid of. So if you are struggling with that process, with those tangible items, just always remember that. I don't say that to imply that you need to just say screw it and get rid of everything, but as my mom said, and she certainly was not the first person to say this, but I always chalk this up to her. Remember that you cannot take any of this stuff with you to the other side. And having an attachment to something special is more than okay. I still have plenty of things. I'm literally looking at my dad's guitar across the room right now, hanging on the wall. But just keep in mind everything that we talked about today as much as you can. Be honest about where an item falls in the absolutely keep for now, or get rid of category. And just remember that there are so many of us out there that can relate to you on some level with where you might be in this process right here, right now in this moment. So take your time with it as much as you can and give yourself grace as well. All right. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me on this one. If you made it to the end, you're amazing. Thank you. And if this episode was impactful for you and someone you know might benefit from hearing it too, I would so appreciate you sharing it with them. It helps this podcast reach more fellow grievers that could use these tools and strategies and conversations. And don't forget to leave a rating or review wherever you stream your podcasts. I will see you in the next episode.